Hey, what's up guys? It's me, your boy Oraban Kaste Kevinish back here with another brand new video, and I hope you guys are having a great day. So in this video, we are going to talk about the championship fight, the fight between Checo Perez and Max Verstappen. Well, whether this happens or not is something that is secondary. The main thing is that after the race in Baku, when Checo was interviewed, he was very much upfront and honest that he is in for the fight, and this year he really wants to fight for the championship and maybe even secure a championship for himself. So we are just going to look into how quite possible is this, and if it is even possible in the first place. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video, guys. Well, the topic of discussion, Checo is in for a championship fight. Well, that is a very exciting prospect considering the fact that there is no other team that is really contesting Red Bull for the championship really. Right now, Red Bull is running away with both the drivers and the constructors championship, and if Checo doesn't really contest for the drivers championship, Max really is just running away with it. And we can't afford to have another year where we face the very similar fate to 2022. So it's great that Checo is going to put up a fight, and so far from what we've seen from him, it is promising. His pace to Max is very close, within a tenth, just like last year. The main problem with Checo is something that we have to face, is that his pace midway through the season just completely falls compared to Max. Midway through the season last year, the gap between Max and Checo just grew to almost half a second, and you can't really afford to have that if you want to be fighting for the championship. And the problem for Checo is that he's fighting against a guy who is his teammate, and the second thing is that he is literally right now, considering all the parameters, the fastest driver on the grid right now. And when you're pitted against someone like Max, you have to be very, very consistent, and you always have to give your 200% to at least match the pace of Max, if not outpace Max. And that is the challenge that Checo is against right now. And when he was interviewed after the race in Baku, and the interviewer who interviewed Checo after the race said in Sky Sports podcast that they saw a very different Checo to the Checo that we have witnessed in the past. He seems very driven, extremely motivated, and he seems hungry. And that is very, very important if you want to fight for the championship. And Checo is a guy who can really do it if he really puts his mind to. And honestly, I believe in him. And whether he secures the championship or not, that is secondary. The fact that he is willing to fight for it is already a great thing. And considering the fact that there is no real other competition other than his teammate for the championship this year, makes it even easier as to who he really has to focus on, which is on himself, and also make sure that he is always on top of his game against Max. Well, now let's see what he has to do really to, let's say, fight for the championship and at least take the fight to Max this year till the end of the season. Well, it is for him to stay focused, driven, that is very, very important, and to stay straightforward and ruthless. You can be a nice guy in Formula 1, but being too much of a nice guy don't win you races and championship. Just take a look at the past. You have to be a little bit selfish if you want to be a champion. Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, pretty much every champion that we have known or at least seen in the recent past have been selfish, and they have to be if they want to win championship. And if you look at Max, he is a driver who is good, but at the same time he's extremely ruthless and aggressive. He's extremely straightforward as to what he wants to do in the sport. He wants to win. He wants to go out there on track and come out on top. That is pretty much what you need to be a champion, and that is the same mindset that Checo has to adapt this year if he wants to fight for championship. He has to go into a weekend thinking that I have to be on top of my game, I have to stay focused, and I have to come out on top every single weekend. That is very, very important. And another thing is for him to stay consistent. He has to be very, very consistent this year, because Max is a driver who's extremely consistent. And if you want to go against a guy like Max, you have to be consistent as well. You can't afford to make any mistakes or make any errors during the race that can compromise on your race result. Like for say example, if Checo hadn't go out on the outside of George Russell in Austria, he would have probably finished that race in P3 at least, and finishing P3 would have easily got Checo P2 in the Drivers' Championship last year. So that is what I'm talking about. Every single point matters. He has to stay on top of his game, he has to be consistent, and he has to be always there for the taking. And another thing is to stay out of trouble. Again, another thing is that this year, because Red Bull is just so far apart from rest of the grid, really no other team has anything to lose against Red Bull. Red Bull has everything to lose, and it's important for both the drivers, both Checo and Max, to be very consistent and make sure that they are patient in making moves. And if they are put in middle of the pack, it's important for them to stay patient and pick the right moment to overtake. They can't make any audacious high risk moves like they have probably done in the past, because that could result in them getting damage, which could compromise their overall race result. So it's important for them to stay out of trouble, stay consistent. The next thing is to give it all to outpace Max every weekend. I know this can be hard. I know all of these things are easier said than done. But if you're in the sport like Formula 1, which is, I know that you are just as good as your last race, you have to be on top of your game. You have to give it all when you're going against a champion, a defending champion like Max Verstappen. And Checo has to give it everything, absolutely everything, and try to see and analyze where he's really weak compared to Max and try to fix that up. And so far from what we've seen from Checo, his performance deficit really comes from the high speed corners. He's not being able to flow the car through the corner like Max can. And I think that is stealing lap times from Checo compared to Max. And these are the things that he really has to analyze and really has to fix himself in terms of racing to keep himself on top of the game, and try to outpace Max every weekend is something that he has to do. It's important for Checo to finish ahead of Max every weekend. If not, the worst case scenario, finish just behind him. And he can't afford to lose any further positions than that. Another thing is, if not first, finish second. Again, it's not wrong to finish second. If Checo cannot win the race against Max, it's very important that he finishes at least second. The second is your second best option. Like, no pun intended, he has to at least finish second in pretty much every race going forward from here if he wants to fight for the championship. And in case if Max slips up making a mistake, or if he has a reliability issue, Checo will be there for the taking to take the race win, which will give him 25 points of lead over Max. So that is what we are talking about. The consistency, to always be there for the taking. Keep yourself out of trouble. Be straightforward and ruthless. Have a bit of selfishness. I know that Checo might not like being that way. I know he's a nice person, but sometimes you have to put aside being nice to be competitive in a sport like Formula 1. And I think Checo will do that this year. And the last and final thing is to not lose confidence or hope. I know that Max is the fastest driver, and when you're pitted against the fastest driver on the grid, it's important for you to not lose hope or confidence midway through the season. I know there will be a lot of people, including me, judging and analyzing every move he does from here on if he's fighting for the championship. The high pressure, that's what comes with being pitted against a teammate like Max. You're always compared, you're always being analyzed with every single move that you're making on track. And it's important for you to not lose your hope or confidence midway through if you want to fight for the championship. And talking about if Red Bull would intervene midway through the season to favor Max, well, the thing is that if going into the summer break, if Checo and Max are still clear of the field, and if Checo and Max are still equally in position to fight for the championship, I don't see why the team would want to favor one driver over another. I think it's important to be fair and it's important to be balanced, and I think that's what the team principal Christian Horner would do this year, considering the kind of advantage they have at both the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. And I think Checo will have a chance at fighting for the championship this year if he stays up to the expectations that come with fighting for the championship. And considering the fact that this is the closest that Checo has ever been to actually fighting for the championship, he's in a championship winning team, he's in a top team which has produced a brilliant car that is just far ahead of the rest of the grid this year. And I think this is the closest that Checo has ever been at winning a Drivers' Championship, or at least fighting for one. And I think Checo will give it everything he's got, considering that he only has contract for another year to the end of 2024, and after that he doesn't really have a contract. So it's important for him to deliver for the team and prove his worth within the team to probably Christian Horner considering a 1-year contract extension to the end of 2025. If not, this is probably his best shot at fighting for the Drivers' Championship. So yeah, I guess we just have to wait and watch from here on. I'm recording this video on Thursday, literally the day before the Miami Grand Prix weekend starts. So let's see how it all pans out. And let me know in the comments on what you think about Checo fighting for the championship. Do you think he can do it, or do you think it's just too hard of an uphill battle for him? And what do you think? Do you think Red Bull would let both their drivers fight on track and battle it out for the Drivers' Championship? Let me know it all down in the comments, guys. I'm excited to know what you have to say. And with that being said, I'd like to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to the Autobahn Cast YouTube channel if you haven't already. And also hit that bell icon and turn on all notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a brand new video. It's me, your boy Autobahn Cast aka Vinesh, and I'm out. Love you guys. Stay safe. Peace.